Next, once you've got all your 3 layers, you're gonna have to work on the slide. Now, I've done a previous design and I thought that design would work, but obviously it's not going to be. So the side's gonna rest on the barrel, and the secondary barrel, and then it's gonna have a thing going through the middle, which will guide it back and forth. And that will be attached to a spring, which should hopefully help this baby to move back and forth. You're going to get the middle piece and cut out the trigger hole and the trigger guard, and the same thing with the hammer. And you're also going to cut out the clip, which is really huge, and then you're going to do this, which is going to help the slide. Now, I laid all those 3 pieces together and made a cut so that it's on the same side, and took the middle piece to I don't know, it's just easy with the middle piece. Now with this little hole here, you're gonna find a spring of some sort and attach it to the front of this thing, and also to stick that's the wire that's gonna go in here. That's gonna help this. That's gonna guide the slide, and it's gonna give it its spring back action. You're gonna need a very strong spring to move a really heavy slide, or light, depending on what you use. Now I've gotten a spring and just attached it to the rail so that if you hold on to one of the spring and you just pull it back, it will snap back. If it doesn't, then you've got something seriously wrong with your spring. But let's continue with this story. Now, this hole will need to be bigger because this is way fatter than everything else. So you're gonna get your sanding tool and you're gonna just make it bigger. Now, you have to measure how long you need your spring to be, and if your spring is too long, you're gonna need to find where you need to cut it off, and then pull it apart like that. Then you get pliers and just chop it off. Easy as that. When you're gluing the spring in, make sure you put in a buttload of hot glue because it needs to be extremely strong because of the spring tension and the pull back forth thing. I don't know, I don't physics well. Shut up. Are my science teachers watching? Please don't read too much into that. Please. Okay, anyway, back to this. Buttload of hot glue, check. Spring, check. Trigger, check. Yeah, you're gonna need a spring for the trigger, hammer, and yeah, the layers will be done. Then you can glue them together. Easy. And then you're gonna cut a hole for the barrel, which is gonna, for like a metal barrel, which I already made, but I will make a second one so that you guys can see. For a barrel, and which will go in here, and then a secondary barrel which will go in here, which will be hollowed out because it looks cool. So yeah, here's what I'm up to right now. The next step is to get a piece of tin and wrap it around your gun. Now I already did this part, and basically it's gonna wrap around your gun to form the slide. And I went one step ahead and traced out the hammer place, I don't know, that part. And then the next step is to find a piece of EVA foam, maybe two, and get this shape out here so that the barrels can stick through them. Now that you got your shape, all you gotta do is sand it down, and we gotta paste it on. Oh baby, it's almost done. You have no idea the good feeling this gives me. I've been working on this for like almost a week now, and at times it looked like it wasn't gonna be finished, but it is coming together super nicely. After you've cut out every piece, you can go ahead and glue in the middle piece onto one of the side pieces. It really doesn't matter which one, and then you can sand down all of the pieces so that it's exactly the same size. And yeah, then once you got your slide pieces, which are 2 pieces of tin stacked on top of each other that will fit exactly onto the top of the gun, you can grab a wire. I think it's a zinc iron alloy, which is gavel bond. I had to make a cut right there because I forgot the name of the metal, but it's a gavel bond steel wire. So yeah, that's gonna the spring's gonna fit in the middle there, and it's gonna slide back and forth. So yeah, that's how the slide's gonna work. And once all your parts have been done, you can go ahead and paint them. But I haven't finished putting all the layers of glue onto the part, so I'm gonna have to do that now. You've drilled a hole for the barrel to sit in. You just need to grab some glue or some hot glue, whatever adhesive of your choice, and just stick it in there. I just realized that I kind of made a mistake. So when you're gluing in the barrel, you gotta take off the one side, the side that you didn't glue on, because then you can actually put in the triggers, the things, and the slide. So yeah. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention in the previous video, when you put springs in there, you gotta make it have a low elasticity so that it can actually spring back, because it is foam. And so you need it to be soft so that you can actually pull it back without it bending like plastic. So yeah, guess it sort of looks like a gun now. For the aesthetics of the slide, you're gonna need, it really depends on what your gun is gonna look like. If it's gonna look like a Desert Eagle, you're obviously gonna have this, you're obviously gonna make the slide a bit, you know, flatter on the edges, and you're gonna leave it silver. But for me, I'm gonna make like a, sort of like a automatic Colt pistol, standard issue police pistol, mostly because it looks sick. So I'm gonna need to cut off this part, and same thing on the other side, and then add some EVA foam parts to the gun, to the slide, and that will be the slide. And when you put on the slide, it's gonna look really cool. What am I saying? Now, because you're using a pen spring for the slide mechanism, it's probably gonna break very easily, and it's probably not gonna be very strong to move a tin slide, which is actually heavier than I thought it would be. So we are going to have to use a secondary spring. Now, I got one from a student handbook that I owned a while back, so yeah, it's not very strong, but at least it'll help out this spring and take some of the stress off of it. Because remember, this spring right here is holding this entire thing up, back and forth. So it has to be extremely strong. So it won't really help that much, but it will at least help to take off. It will at least help to take off some of the stress. So yeah. Also glued the secondary barrel in, just, you know, as a note. And while you're waiting for stuff to be ready, like for example for this to dry, because I glued in the stick in the middle. Well, shit. Anyway, I've just glued in the stick in the middle, so that will help it guide. So while you're waiting for that to dry, it would probably be a good idea to paint the barrel, because once you put the slide on, you're gonna have to pull it back for you to paint the barrel inside, which is gonna be an ass, because you'll strain on the springs, and that might ruin the project. So let's go do it now. Once the paint is dried, you can go ahead and glue on the spring to the thing, so that when you pull back, let's do this. When you pull back, it will hopefully snap back forward. Now, my spring isn't that strong, so it can't really snap back forward, but it will help in the process of snapping back forward, because this spring in the middle will already be doing most of that. So once you're done with that, you can probably just leave it for the night and work on it the next day, because the glue that I set in here is taking a long time to dry, so yeah. Now, because this metal piece is the same size as the foam thickness thing, it's gonna stick up, and when you glue it onto the slide, it will probably stick to the foam. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your Dremel and just sand it down 1 centimeter or 2, so that it won't stick to it when you stick it on. Now you only need to do this for one part, because, you know, so that it will stick. There you go, that process only took 5 seconds. You just need to sand down a little hole so that when it sticks through, this metal piece sticks through and you're sticking it to the slide, the glue won't accidentally stick to the foam piece and your slide won't be able to move at all. Now once you got all the slides glued on and all the pieces glued together and all the parts in place, you can finally go ahead and start shaping the gun. Now this can be done by drawing your grip piece, and this is why we're going to use the grid pattern on the outside, so that the grip piece looks cool. Same thing on the other side, then you're going to drill off this side so it's rounded. And once you're done, you're gonna get some putty or wood glue in my case, and just fill in all the gaps so it looks like a solid piece of plastic or metal instead of 3 layers of foam. Now when you're sanding it, make sure you sand it at a 45-degree angle first, away from the line. Then when you start to get closer to the line, start narrowing down your angle so that you get a nice smooth bevel. Now that once they're all nice and sexily rounded, you can now work on the trigger mount. On normal guns, the trigger is obviously not as big as the gun itself, so you're gonna have to measure in a bit, just a bit off the middle piece, and cut it. So that's how thick your trigger guard is gonna be. And to cut it out, you're gonna either use a pair of X-Acto blades or and this, which will go into the Dremel and will cut it easily. Basically, an easier way to explain it is measure a bit and cut a section out of the trigger. And you need to sand it down a bit. So use the Dremel to sand this part off so that it's smooth, and do the same thing on the other side. All the sanding is now done. The grip is now very nice and smooth and sexy looking. The trigger guard and all that works, although might need to sand down the trigger guard a bit more, because this seems to be blocking the trigger from moving back and forth a bit. But I have to say it does look a bit unproportionate, because, you know, I don't know, it looks very off. Like the slide and all that is too big for the handle and that, but it looks good nonetheless. The next step is to get putty. Dab some on your finger like so, and then fill in the gaps where needed. Now this part is very smooth and very flat and flush, so it doesn't need some, but this bit, for example, has a bit of a gap there, so you want to put the putty around the gap and then use a clean finger to just spread it so that it's flush with the surface. And once that dries, it'll dry like plastic, and it'll be fine. Just dab some everywhere you see imperfections. And I'm a perfectionist, so there has to be no gaps. Eliminate all the gaps. Next, you're gonna want to coat every single foam part in at least 5 layers of white glue. Now, I've said this before, it's gonna strengthen everything, so yeah, that's gonna take a while. So once your gun is dry and is sealed, you can go ahead and start painting it. Now, I decided to use black spray paint, and so to do this, you can basically get an old magazine or some newspaper. Newspaper works better, but I don't have that right now because, you know, I don't know. So you get the thing, put it there, and you just spray away. After you've painted it, it should dry in about 10 minutes. Well, depending on the spray you use. Sorry, I'm a bit sick today, but depending on the spray you use, and in 2 hours you can start to recoat it. But mine seems to be already dry, and these paint that peeled off when I set it down, it stuck to the paper. I think I'm gonna leave that so that adds a bit of weathering to mine. But otherwise, you can put a aim thing up here and at the back, and then you're practically done with it. So that, guys, was how to build a prop handgun with working features. Now, this prop that I showed you was the second one of the 2 handguns that I made, mostly because the first one, the one that I'm showing you right now, doesn't have a working slide, which I really wanted on this handgun. The reason why I did put it in was because I put only one spring at the front here on the barrel, and I'm pretty sure on the second tutorial I said to put a little rail that will guide it back and forth to put a second spring on that, so that it has enough tension to pull it back. Now that spring tension works on the second one, and I'm planning to put a bit of detail on it later, but for now I'm just going to leave it pretty blank because I'm going to be using it for far shots anyway, so they won't really need to be that detailed. So I hope you guys all enjoyed, hope you had enough materials to make it yourself at home, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.